Get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan talking with Mark. Deep breath Mark. Clear sinuses Mark Andreessen. Talking about the world of debanking. Now, this is not something that I knew. We all know about debanking. We know about it via Kanye West and Tate. Those are the two people who were on, the biggest platforms who we heard that happen to. But Mark has a whole bunch of stories about people getting debanked. And it's very interesting because I did some research, and someone who was in the White House up until 2020 also faced debanking. Someone from the Trump family, surprisingly. Never would have thought that, but I'll get into that story after the clip. Let's get into the Joe Rogan clip first, and then I'll show you a clip from Melania Trump while she tells her story.
The guy steering the simulation. Yeah. So look, this goes back to what we were talking about before. Like it is time to carve this government back in size and scope. It's time to take the overall. You can talk about distribution of taxes, but it's time to take the overall tax load down. It's time to take the spending down. It's time to get the government out of the position of deciding who gets money. It's time to unleash economic growth.
Elon explained that there's more agencies than there have been years of the United States.
Correct. Yeah, 450 federal agencies and 2 new ones a year. And then my favorite twist is we have this thing called independent federal agencies. So like, for example, we have this thing called the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, CFPB, which was it's sort of Elizabeth Warren's personal agency that she gets to control. And it's an independent agency that just gets to run and do whatever it wants, right? And if you read the Constitution, like there is no such thing as an independent agency, and yet there it is.
What does her agency do?
Whatever she wants.
What does it do, though?
Basically, terrorize financial institutions, prevent fintech, prevent new competition, new startups that want to compete with the big banks.
Really?
Oh yeah, 100%.
How so?
Just by terrorizing anybody who tries to do anything new in financial services.
Can you give me an example?
Well, I say, debanking. This is where a lot of the debanking comes from, is these agencies. So debanking is when you as either a person or your company are literally kicked out of the banking system.
Like they did to Kanye.
Exactly, like they did to Kanye. My partner Ben's father has been debanked.
Really?
We had an employee who
for what?
For having the wrong politics, for saying unacceptable things. Under current banking regulations, here's a great thing. Under current banking regulations, after all the reforms of the last 20 years, there's now a category called a politically exposed person, PEP. And if you are a PEP, you are required by financial regulators to kick them off of to kick them out of your bank. You're not allowed to have
what if you're politically on the left?
Well, that's fine.
No,
because they're not politically exposed.
So no one on the left gets debanked?
I have not heard of a single instance of anyone on the left getting debanked.
Can you tell me what the person that you know did, what they said that got them debanked?
Oh, well, I mean, David Horowitz is a right wing. He's pro-Trump. I mean, he said all kinds of things. He's been very anti-Islamic terrorism. He's been very worried about migration, all these things.
And they debanked him for that.
Yeah, they debanked him. So you get kicked out of your bank account. You get kicked out of you can't do credit card transactions. By the way, you can't.
How is that legal?
Well, exactly. So this is the thing, and then you go into this thing of like, well, this is where the government and the companies get intertwined. Back to your fascism point, which is there's a constitutional amendment that says the government can't restrict your speech, but there's no constitutional amendment that says the government can't debank you, right? And so if they can't do the one thing, they do the other thing, and then they don't have to debank you. They just have to put pressure on the private company banks to do it, and then the private company banks do it because they're expected to. But the government gets to say, we didn't do it. It was the private company that did it. And of course, JP Morgan can decide who they want to have as customers, of course, right? Because they're a private company. And so it's this sleight of hand that happens. So it's basically a privatized sanctions regime that lets bureaucrats do to American citizens the same thing that we do to Iran.
Whoa.
Just kick you out of the financial system. And so this has been happening to all the crypto entrepreneurs in the last 4 years. This has been happening to a lot of the fintech entrepreneurs, anybody trying to start any kind of new banking service, because they're trying to protect the big banks. And then this has been happening, by the way, also in legal fields of economic activity that they don't like. And so a lot of this started about 15 years ago with this thing called Operation Choke Point, where they decided to, as marijuana started to become legal, as prostitution started to become legal, and then guns, which there's always a fight about. Under the Obama administration, they started to debank legal marijuana businesses, escort businesses, and then gun shops, just like your gun manufacturers, and just like you're done, you're out of the banking system. And so if you're running a medical marijuana dispensary in 2012, like guess what? You're doing your business all in cash because you literally can't get a bank account. You can't get a Visa terminal. You can't process transactions. You can't do payroll. You can't do direct deposit. You can't get insurance. Like none of that stuff you've been sanctioned, right? None of that stuff is available. And then this administration extended that concept to apply it to tech founders, crypto founders, and then just generally political opponents. So that's been like super pernicious.
I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, 100%. And this is called, so it was Operation Choke Point 1.0 was 15 years ago against the pot and the guns. choke point 2.0 is primarily against their political enemies and then to their disfavored tech startups. And it's hit the tech world like we've had like 30 founders debanked in the last 4 years.
Really?
Yeah. It's been a big recurring pattern.
30.
This is one of the reasons why we ended up supporting Trump. It's like we can't live in this world. We can't live in a world where somebody starts a company that's a completely legal thing and then they literally like get sanctioned, right, and embargoed by the United States government through a completely unaccountable. By the way, no due process. None of this is written down. There's no rules. There's no court. There's no decision process. There's no appeal. Who do you appeal to, right? Like who do you go to get your bank account back, right?
God.
And then there's also the civil asset forfeiture side of it, which is right the other side, and that doesn't happen to us, but that happens to people in a lot of places now who get arrested, and all of a sudden, the state takes their money.
Yes,
Civil asset
that happens to
forfeiture.
people if they get pulled over and they have a large amount of cash in some states.
Right. Or, there've been, well-publicized examples of there'll be some investigation into safe deposit boxes. And the next thing you know, the feds have seized all the contents of the safe deposit boxes and that stuff never gets returned. And so it's this, and this is when Trump says the deep state, the way we would describe it is it's administrative power. It's political power being administered not through legislation, right? So there's no defined law that covers this. It's not through regulation, right? There's nothing you can't go sue a regulator to fix this. It's not through any kind of court judgment. It's just raw power. It's just raw administrative power. It's the government or politicians just deciding that things are going to be a certain way, and then they just apply pressure until they get it.
So what happens to those 30 tech people that you know?
Start to go into a different field, like try to do something different and try to get
complete upending of your life.
Yeah, complete upending of your life, and try to change your life. Try to get out of try to get away from the eye of Sauron. Try to get out of whatever zone got you into this and keep applying for new bank accounts at different banks and hope that at some point a bank will say, okay, it's okay. We've checked it. It's now all right.
Whoa.
But there's no.
So what do they do with their money? Like what happens?
You go to cash.
You go to cash.
You can't have
so where do you put it?
I don't under your mattress. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That is so insane.
Yeah,
so if someone has $30 million in the bank and they get debanked.
Diamonds, art, do you, I don't know, go overseas somewhere?
Holy shit.
Yeah. It just happens. And again, it's really, really important. There's no fingerprints. Like there's no person who.
There's no stick above the strings.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It just happened, and we can trace it back because we understand exactly. We know the politicians involved, and we know how the agencies work, and we know how the pressure is applied, and we know that these banks get phone calls and so forth. And so we can loosely we understand the flow of power as it happens. But when you're on the receiving end of this, your specific instance of it, like you can't trace it back, and there's nothing you can do about it.
What are the instances? Like, what is the company? What are they trying to do, and how do they run afoul?
Well, all the crypto startups in the last basically 4 years. So remember the crypto thing got like really, sort of everybody got excited and like NFTs and like all that stuff. And then it just like stopped.
Yeah.
And the reason it stopped is because basically every crypto founder, every crypto startup, they either got debanked personally and forced out of the industry, or their company got debanked and so it couldn't keep operating, or they got prosecuted, charged, or they got threatened with being charged. This is a fun twist. This is a fun little twist. So the SEC sort of has been trying to kill the crypto industry under Biden, and this has been a big issue for us because we're the biggest crypto startup investor. The SEC can investigate you, they can subpoena you, they can prosecute you, they can do all these things, but they don't have to do any of those things to really damage you. All they have to do is they issue what's called a Wells notice, and the Wells notice is a notification that you may be charged at some point in the future. Like you're like on notice that you might be doing something wrong, and they might be coming after you at some point in the future.
Oh my God!
Okay, so
terrifying. That's the eye.
The eye of Sauron is on you. Okay,
yeah.
Now trying to be a company with a Wells notice doing business with anybody else.
Oh my God!
Right, try to work with a big company, try to get access to a bank, try to do.
So
anything.
that's when they support DEI initiatives, and
Well, and then the SEC under Biden became a direct application of exactly. So DEI, they did a lot with that, and then ESG, all the ESG stuff, and ESG is a very malleable concept, and they piled all kinds of new requirements into that. So through this process, the SEC could basically just simply dictate what companies do, with no accountability at all. Like there are hearings where they get yelled at, but like nothing changed. Nothing ever happened in a hearing that ever changed anything.
Wow.
It was just the raw application of power. Right. And
this is your friends. This has happened to.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we had an employee who got debanked because he had crypto in his job title. He was doing crypto policy for us, and his bank booted him because he.
That's it.
Because they did a screen across. It's what they told us is they did a screen across their customer base.
And anyone with crypto.
Because anybody with crypto became a politically exposed person. Because crypto was politically controversial, right?
That's so.
You hear this sometimes as like there's these terms, compliance. reputation management,
Yeah.
tone at the top. They have these lovely sounding terms that make it sound like everybody's going to be an upstanding citizen. But what they're all code for is destroy the enemy, like bring the hammer of God and the bank and the government or whoever or the social media, bring it down and just like crush the individual.
Wow.
With no due process. And look, there's an argument in the long run that this is all unconstitutional because the Constitution gives us all the right to due process, and this is government pressure, and there's no.
Right.
So like, there's probably a Supreme Court case in 5 years that's going to find retroactively that this was all illegal. But in the moment, when you're the guy who's been debanked, I mean, number one,
and then also the potential that if you do challenge them in court and lose, the repercussions would be even heavier.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Why is it really worth your effort?
Yeah.
Is it worth the risk?
That's right.
Especially if you've already had your life upended. You ready to do it again?
Yeah, that's right.
When you barely built yourself back up?
Yeah. So this is, and I think this is important context where like when Elon and Vivek talk about like reducing regulation, you know, there's two ways of thinking about reducing regulation. It's like, oh my God, the water and the air are going to get dirty and the food's going to get poisoned.
Right.
Now, some of those regulations I think are very important. But the other way to think about it is examples like this, which is just raw government power being applied to ordinary people who are just trying to live their lives or just trying to do something legitimate, and they're just on the wrong side of something that the people in power have decided.
Wow. I let that run a little long. Man, I'm telling you, man, you know, you gotta take the good with the that he keeps on doing, because I'm telling you, he always brings a good podcast whenever he's on the show. I've never seen this guy give a boring podcast. I'm actually going to start listening to his podcast. I've never listened to it at all. I heard a clip here or there just recently because of the JRE, but man, that is something to behold. Having that happen to you and the reasons that it's happening. Man. And I know some people in crypto. Like, I know at least a dozen or so. And some of them don't talk about their titles. Like, you know, interesting. Very, very interesting. Man, maybe that's why they're buying art. And you know what? He brings up the Eye of Sauron. Bro, I know. I'm not saying how I know. Okay, YouTube, not you, YouTube. I'm not saying how I know, but I know all about that. Sometimes you do a thing, and then all of a sudden, you get impacted in another way, and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have talked about that thing. And then you have to talk about space aliens for the next week and a half, and you're like, oh, until they're like, okay, well, leave them alone. You know what? In fact, I don't know about that. I've heard that. I've heard it. That's what I should have said. I've heard some people go through on platforms. Not me, though. Anyway, let's get into the eye will be on me after this one, that's for sure. People who have been debanked. Nigel, I don't know how to say that name. I'll say Farage. British politician, former leader of the UK Independence Party. Farage was debanked from Coutts & Co. high-end bank, allegedly due to political beliefs. This is the one that we're going to be talking about a little more extensively. Melania Trump. Melania Trump says that she was debanked and her son was denied a bank account. Let's move on to the list because, you know, I'm going to talk about that a little more. Let me shrink this screen a little bit for you guys. Sorry about that. Then we have Greg Shapps or Grant Shapps. I'm thinking that's how the name's spelled. British Conservative cabinet minister. Shapps has reportedly been debanked by a bank, although the exact reason is unclear. Christian charities. Oh, just Christian charities? Oh, gosh. Jeez. Several Christian charities, including Indigenous, Advanced Ministries, and Financial Council have been debanked, allegedly due to their political or religious beliefs. Now, with a charity, I could see that because maybe they're looking at it and it's a little bit like, what's going on in this charity? You know, like, I'm not going to say it's all good, but I could see where there's something else afoot. I don't know. But when it comes to those people who are in politics, it's like, kind of know what's going on there. And then Arab and South Asian Americans. Democratic lawmakers have alleged that many Arab and South Asian Americans who are considered high risk due to their religious or national origin have been debanked. Hey, whoever's doing the debanking, why are you telling those people? Listen, I don't condone it, and tell if you want, but could you imagine? Hi, I'm a South Asian person. What exactly happened? It's because of where you're from and your religion. What'd you just say? Yeah, that's right. Security? Jesus. Oh, man. That's a wild thing, but apparently that's what's going on. Trying to make light of the situation, although this is terrifying. You know Joe is terrified, right? Joe's sitting back right now, and he's like, did I get Trump elected? What happens 2028? I guess I'm safe for now. But what happens 2028? Oh, man, he better buy a big bed to keep all his money under. I got to tell you. There's different reasons that this happens. It says all the things that I mentioned: lack of usage, low account activity, business or professional activity deemed high risk. That's exactly what Mark was talking about when he said you're given that mark on your account. Whew, wild. But let's just get into Melania Trump here. Let's move over here. Melania Trump. Let me shrink this down once again. I gotta start shrinking these screens. Barron was not allowed to open a bank account. Melania points to cancel culture. So I don't even know if she knew about the term debanking when this happened. I mean, honestly, this is a term that I have not heard myself. So maybe she was unfamiliar. But apparently she credits it to cancel culture. She says she went to a bank that she's used for a long time, wanted to open a bank account for Barron. Following departure from the after they left the White House, Melania indicated this prohibition regarding opening a bank account is cancel culture. Melania has expressed in her memoirs, Melania, which was published recently, that she referred to this kind of prohibition as political motivated discrimination. Now, I mean, when it comes to the Trumps, you got to say, especially in 2021, you have to say, obviously, you know. What a bad decision to make as a bank. You know what I mean? What a bad decision. There's more about it here. This post was talking about, this is news. This happened weeks ago. I didn't even know when her book was released. People were talking about it. Barron Trump was denied a bank account due to cancel culture. They're calling it cancel culture because they don't really know about the term debanking. But this was definitely somebody being debanked. Yeah, let's hear from Melania. But I just want to say, what a bad decision. What a bad decision to make. Like, you don't do it to Trump. You know, you're like, oh, that's too much money. He's a billionaire. You know, he might make some more billions. There's a big company. We can't justify it. But you're like, but let's get his wife and his youngest son. Oh, man. Now he runs the department. He owns the Department of Justice. Oh, no. What'd you do? Oh, gosh. Can you imagine Trump just shutting down banks? All right, let's get into this. They need a loan. They need a bailout. Trump's like, I don't think so. You know what? I feel like nobody that's in my family has a bank in your bank. So I feel like I'm gonna opt out. I'm not going to give you any money. Maybe you should go see China. Maybe China has a bank account for you. Let's go, Melania Trump here.
You write some things in the book that I didn't know. Your bank canceling your account. You know, this pushback from so many areas of your life that you never saw before. But suddenly, the powers that be wanted to cancel you. What happened and how did that feel?
It happened already in the White House, and soon he announced for politics, but later on, more when we left the White House, when I established my own business. As you said, the bank suddenly informed me they will not be able to do business with me anymore. Also, I had very prominent email distribution service provider just rapidly terminated my agreement. So suddenly, as well as the university, I was all agreed that they will accept my donations for the foster students, and because of the board directors, they called back, they found out that it was me, they said we cannot go on. And it's very, very sad, because who suffered? They were children from foster community. They didn't have a scholarship that somebody will provide for them. They didn't want to do business with me because of political affiliation, my political beliefs, and that was one of them, one of the canceling project.
Has it changed, do you think, in the last few years at all?
I think some people got the courage and they said, they see it, what's going on, and they're not afraid to speak. But it's still going on. I think it's still cancel culture, and that trend, it's still going on. And because of the board directors.
You know what? That is absolutely crazy. Now, the donations I heard about, I'm sure we all heard about that. She tried to donate and, they just said they didn't want to do that. But the bank account is a very odd one, especially to do it to the youngest son of a man who's a billionaire, the wife of a billionaire. To do that, it just, you can't say it's high. How is it high risk? It wouldn't be. Right? It has to be because of the affiliation. And Mark explained it perfectly. There's a chain of command, a way that the power flows, and then that happens. Wow. That's an interesting thing, I wonder what's going to happen to all these guys. Maybe me too in 2028. What happens? Because if the power flow is correct, the way Mark is saying it, then come 2020, come January 20th, this kind of thing stops. Because Trump, he actually wants AI startups, crypto startups. He wants all of that to flourish. He sees that. He's been talking about that and electricity and investing in all of these type of things. He sees it as a second industrial revolution. Right? So he wants that to happen. He wants that to happen in America. He wants people from other places to have their companies in America. He wants a bunch of people to end up like Elon Musk because it's just good for the country, right? So I think it would stop. You put somebody, now it's not going to be Matt Gaetz that's going to be overseeing the DOJ. It's going to be somebody else. But see, she seems just as good. A woman named Pam, I believe. I forget her last name, but she seems just as good. So now all of a sudden it stops. And she's a Trump loyalist. She's going to listen to Trump. She's not going to step out of line. So we hope. So it seems. So it stops. 2028, maybe it starts again, depending on who wins. I don't know. But that's a very chilling thing to know that's happening. Let me just say this real quick. Mean tweets or what we just heard. See, that's the thing. That's why people need to dig deeper when they don't like Trump. Because, don't even just dig into Trump. Dig into who's in power now. What? Mean tweets or this? This is terrifying. From these episodes that I've done, this guy's talked about Biden-Harris. They wanted to control all AI. They're debanking people left and right. Makes sense why they're doing it to the startups because they said they wanted to control 3 companies. It's just wild. And some people are just like, the things he says on Twitter are just absolutely outrageous. I can't abide by those things I hear him say on Twitter. I just think that he should just be silent. The things he said on Twitter, I just, you got to do the right thing. That's how everyone on the left sounds to me. You can't change it. That's my mind. That's how my mind works, okay? That's how they all sound. Oh, the thing about it is, Kamala Harris is actually a proven prosecutor. She did so much good things. And when she was in California, that's what I hear. That's what I hear when they talk. The thing about Biden was he did do some good things. And the thing about Trump is he's a little too brash for my liking. That's what they sound like. That's what every single one of them sounds like. And they all have blue hair. That's how it is. I see past the Matrix. So when I see them, they all have blue hair. They all have nose rings. Doesn't matter how nice they're dressed. Kyle Kalinski's in a suit. I see blue hair. And he's like, the thing about the Trump administration is he's a fascist. I hear Chank Yogurt, whatever his name is. And he's like, how you guys, of course, Trump is a fascist. I mean, how could you guys deny this? Come on. That's what they all sound like. Bill Maher, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm feeling loopy. I just had Thanksgiving dinner. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all. If you're listening till the end right now, happy Thanksgiving. I had my stuffing. I had gluten-free stuffing because I'm soft. I needed to be gluten-free. Okay. And I had some green beans, bacon, turkey, all dark meat. All dark meat. And now I'm about to have some pie. That's what I'm about to go do. I like my pie cooled down. And if not, then I'll heat it up. But I think I like it cool, So I'm just going to do that right now. Wife made pie. Again, gluten-free. I'm soft. Whatever. It's the way I like it. All right. But, yeah, just wanted to keep it light near the end because this was truly a terrifying episode. All right. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.